everybody. Welcome to Randi Sands and the Mediumship crew. It's nice to be back. And many of you know, and some of you may not know, that I actually had a bit of a surgical procedure done. So tonight, not knowing how I was going to be feeling, I had asked my friend Stacy Schuerman Kopchinski to come in and lead the group tonight. So tonight we are going to be talking about spiritual healing. And Stacy, I'm going to give you the floor.
Fabulous. Thank
you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to see everyone again, all familiar faces. I'm starting to feel like I'm at home. I'm part of the crew. I love it.
You are. As a matter of fact, the crew is morphed. Everybody that comes in is part of the crew.
Fabulous. I love it. So I know we picked tonight's topic about spiritual healing, but I'm also going to so spiritual healing in essence is almost like what I like to call, it's like the world. And then there's all these small continents all over the world, because spiritual healing is a gargantuan word. And there is so many different spiritual modalities of healing. So, I mean, we could talk about color therapy, we could talk about Reiki, we could talk about access bar consciousness. I mean, all of these, you know, there's not a healing that's a bad healing that I know of, that I'm aware of when it comes to the spiritual healing. But what I like to focus on, and we'll kind of bounce around tonight in different types of modalities, but I'd like to kind of first focus on what I call spiritualist healing, because when the spiritualism movement started, they called it spiritual healing. But back then, there wasn't this great knowledge of Eastern medicine and Western, you know, like there was just this, you know, kind of small sector of spiritual healing. So spiritualists said, oh, well, we do spiritual healing. But now with the times and the changes and this great knowledge that we're, you know, developing, there's a lot of different types of spiritual healing. But spiritualist healing is what like the focus will kind of be on tonight. And we'll talk. I actually want to ask Randi some questions about her surgery. But I want to first kind of talk about what is spiritualist healing. So like mediumship, healing is, you're a healing medium is actually what we call it. Like there's actually mediums who just focus on healing. There's mediums who focus on healing and messages. You know, it doesn't really matter, but we actually see healing as a form of mediumship because we're working with guides, teachers, and healers from the other side. And we are the channel or the tunnel for their healing energy to flow into the, you know, depending on what we're healing, into the person, into, you know, the animal, into the situation. There's just kind of different levels of that. So we all have a healer, if we've met them or not, on the spirit side of life. And our loved ones are also there to help us too. You know, one of the things that spiritualism proves is that continuity of life, right? And we know that when we cross over, that we don't all get angel wings right away. We know for how we act here in the now is what we're creating for, you know, the next part of our life. So, and we know here what's one of the best ways to develop or the best ways to unfold or to be, you know, to enlighten ourselves. It's to be of service to others, right? So when we cross over, that is still the same. So there's, if you could imagine, there's spirit people who are like, pick me for a healer or let me help you because you're helping them ultimately then develop too. We know though all healing energy comes from the divine source, whatever your word is, God, infinite intelligence, great spirit, you know, but I mean, all healing comes from that direct source of energy. But it's like, you know, you wouldn't go up and stick your hand into the electrical transmitter in your neighborhood. You might want to stick it in a socket first. You know, don't do that. You know what I mean? You don't want to just go straight for the power, if you would. Sometimes we like to, you know, work up to the power. So that's kind of spiritual.
Put your toe in the water first.
Yeah, a little bit. And what's interesting is and prior to this conversation starting, Randi and some of us were having a conversation. So I'd like to talk to Randi to, you know, ask you to, you know, tell us about your experience when you were getting prepared for the surgery and who was in your room.
Oh my, okay. Well, it was quite interesting. It was a very powerful moment because it was quite a big surgery. For those that don't know, I had quite a breast reduction, and they also removed a couple of spots that were benign, but they were growing. And at the head of my bed, I mean, my bed was just a source of power. At the head was my grandmother, my great-grandmother, 2 aunts, and the Native American Indian that helped raise me, that's now my gatekeeper on the other side. At the foot of my bed was Archangel Michael and all my spirit guides. And there was a man that was standing over the nurse watching what she was doing, and I clearly got grandfather. So I thought it was her grandfather. And I described him to her, and she said, nope, neither of my grandfathers look like that. So the following day when I was talking to my mother-in-law, don't ask me why that man came back up, but he did. And my mother-in-law turned and said, oh my God, the man you just described, you couldn't describe my father any better if you showed me a picture of him. And I've never seen my wife's grandfather. I mean, in all the years we've been married, I've never really seen a picture of her grandparents for whatever reason. But my mother-in-law said that every single thing I said was very detailed about him. And he was standing over that nurse watching everything she did.
Mm-hmm. So I know it's probably right before you get put under, but do you remember how you felt with their presence all around you? Like the feeling that maybe you had? Did you find that there was maybe like a little calmness, or, you know, if you can try to remember what it was like?
Oh, I can remember because it was very different from the other surgery I had where I had a knee reconstruct years ago, and I told them I felt like a dog waiting to be euthanized. Mm. You know, like waiting, the wait. It's like, you know, something's going to happen. You're not sure that you really want this something to happen. You're going to be put under. You don't have any control. You know, that's like a big deal. In this one, I was so calm. The doctor turned to me and said, well, Randi, we're going to get going pretty soon. Are you ready? And I said, let's go.
Yeah.
I was just a little bitter. I didn't get to see the operating room because they told me I was going to, and then they put me to sleep before I got to see it. So I'm a little bitter about that one.
I think somebody suggested write a letter. I thought that was hysterical. But first, let us all read it first, because I can only imagine what that letter would sound like. And then, so let me ask you this: after your surgery, and you come out of it. I mean, you're still very new in the healing process, but yet you're healing quite well and quickly. Are you, do you still feel the presence of spirit around you?
Yeah, it's not left.
Mm-hmm.
My doctor was quite shocked the next day when I went to see him. He walked in the room and said, Randi, did you have surgery yesterday? I said, I did. I said, can't you tell? But I have not taken a single pain pill. I haven't even taken Tylenol.
Yeah.
Wow. I haven't had a need.
Yeah. So, it's so amazing what the power that spirit has, and how we tap into that. And I think, for Randi, obviously, being a medium and constantly tapping into that spirit energy, that spirit realm, healing happens almost naturally, or just, just so smoothly. And I always say that the more we sit with spirit, the more we start to understand the limitless possibilities, right, that we really have. how many of you, I'm just wondering, like, are kind of in touch or in tune? You know, do you know that you have healing doctors and guides and on the other side? I mean, do you work with them? Yeah. So a few of you. Would anyone like to share about their healer before I kind of talk a little bit more? It's kind of I always say it's a very intimate experience, you know, meeting your healers and your doctors on the other side. In spiritualism, they'll even say that some of us have chemists because they will help with, you know, basically taking the physical form of like matter, for example, incisions or, you know, lumps. And the chemist and the healer on the spirit side of life will help either heal rapidly or, you know, like kind of demolish like tumors through using, you know, through energy, through manipulating the chemistry of the illness or the dis-ease. I always like, I've heard, I can't remember who said it, but they call, instead of saying disease, they say dis-ease. Your body is at dis-ease. And I always thought that that was, I see head shakings. I'm like, yeah, that's a good one. Like, you know, and so what they're thinking about is bringing, you know, having spirit bring comfort and stability to that discomfort or that dis-ease, which I thought was, you know, kind of very interesting. If you're a working medium, or if you are looking into spiritualist healing, just like when we develop mediumship with communication and talking to those in the spirit, it's very similar in the essence of sit with spirit. Ask your spirit guide or your, you know, gatekeeper, who are your healers, and see who comes forward. It's really sometimes just that simple as sitting and then working with them.
You know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Stacy.
No, go ahead.
No, I apologize because I know I just did, and I'm sorry. It was quite interesting because Charles and Dwayne were very busy, and I did not expect to bounce back like the way I have. But the two of them were very busy, and I've always known that they existed, and I've always had a relationship, and I kind of knew what their roles were, but they've never been tested, if you know what I mean. Excuse me. I still have a little indigestion. And they were definitely put to the test with this. And boy, they have been busy little beavers working hard. You know,
absolutely.
They've been very, very busy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really awesome, actually, because now you can, with that experience, you can start to take that into the development of spiritual healing, you know, spiritualist healing. Again, big term when you say spiritual healing, because you know, like I said, there's not a bad healing that I've come across.
And you know, it's quite different when you're working to heal others, which I've done for years, versus when it's yourself.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Well, absolutely. And you know, that's interesting because when we talk and develop spiritualist type of healing, there's three different types. There's the absent or distance healing, which is sending out to somebody who might, you know, be distant from you, or you're sending out healing to the world, you know, depending. So absent or distant. Then there's also what we call the laying on of hands healing, which is the most typical one that we hear, you know, which is where we touch, you know, and interesting enough, really, I would love to have a discussion about this, because when are we going to go back to touching? So I think we really need to kind of start to work on that distant or absent, you know. And then there's the spirit surgery, but most importantly, there's the self-healing, you know, which we don't do because, you know, let's just say we don't do it as much as we should. I hope that you're sitting to receive healing for yourself, you know, a few minutes every day. You know, ask your guide to come in and heal. You know, we forget sometimes not just to heal our body, but to heal our mind, heal our emotions, heal a situation. because all of the spiritual healing, it can cover all of that. It's not limited to just the body or just the mind. You know, it's all aspects. And when we're on this spiritual path, right, isn't it just, we always have this desire to help others and be a service to others, and we just want to give and give. But, you know, healing, spiritualist healing, really follows natural and spiritual laws. And the law of compensation, you know, giving and receiving. We can give, but if we're not receiving, we're also throwing all of that natural law out of balance.
I agree.
So I just strongly, and even if you don't know your healing guides yet, just sit, just take 5 minutes, close your eyes, you know, sit in a, you know, sit in some quiet, some stillness, whatever that is. Like, I'm never still, like you can see I'm moving, just talking. I'm Italian, you know, like you can't get me to sit still. So I do it when I'm like doing the dishes or when I'm in the shower. You know, I just ask Spirit's healing energy to just sit in it, just sit in it. And eventually, you know, my healers will show up, or, you know, my healing energy takes the form of a guide or, you know, a teacher or a healer. I have a nurse. She comes in an outfit. She's real cute. one of a couple, you know, it just depends. You know, some people have these great medicine people, like, you know, these medicine, you know, seers, and I'm like, well, here I have like my little nurse Ratchet, and here she comes.
Hey, there's a lot of people that would like to have a cute nurse.
Yeah.
For those of you who raised your hand, who are familiar with your spirit healers, I'm moving this conversation on.
Forgot who you were talking to.
I'm married. I don't need a cute nurse.
Oh, sometimes laughter is the best medicine, isn't it? I tell you. Eve agrees.
Absolutely. I will say this. I've been going for years to the YMCA in town, and we have this little group that we call the water ball warm up. And it's, most of these ladies are 70s and 80s years old, and we just bat the ball around. Well, even through all the deaths of my family and all that grief, the one thing I needed to do was go to that class to laugh. And it got me through. The laughter is the best medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, and think about all that too. Like, think about that. So sometimes you just don't think about all the spirit intervention. Do you know what I mean? I could just see your joy guides are probably water nymphs, just like running around and batting. I love it. I love it. So for those of you who raised your hand who work with your guides, or would you like to share like how maybe that connection works for you, or the feelings that you feel, or how you sit with your guide? Because I really believe in many different paths lead to the same destination, you know, so everyone sometimes gets there a little bit differently. So I shared my way. Does anyone maybe want to share their way of how they connect with their healer? Okay, don't go all at once.
I would just say I'm still learning how to do all that. So I don't really have a set way yet.
Okay.
But I think it's important to me to know that through, like with Randy's classes and stuff, at one point we did a class one night on healing something, and one of the things that she said that stuck with me was that, you know, you get into things because you want to be of service and to help people, but if you can't, generally you have to heal the things within you in order to be able to help other people. And I think a lot of people don't quite understand that concept, or even think about it at all until they, you know, get in the middle of it, and then they're like, oh.
Yeah.
I got to do that first.
You're doing good. You're doing really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought that was thought for. I'm a Gemini. I'm cerebral, so I think that I like.
Well, and see, though, that's good because it's sitting, take 5 minutes. All you need is 5 minutes to, to work, send yourself healing, or at least allow your guides to give you their healing. So you know what it feels like, kind of, because that's, I think, also important to kind of know the difference, like look at everyone who stepped up to Randi. I mean, she had a gang. Hey, the gang was all there, but they knew that this was going to be a big surgery. They knew the outcome. They knew, and they knew exactly what they needed. And I think sometimes too, they can pull our family in, they pull our loved ones, our close ones, and maybe sometimes some surprises in to help heal, which I think is quite fascinating.
I can tell you that what I do is relatively simple. I mean, saying it and hearing myself say it, it sounds so simplistic that you're like, really? Mm-hmm. But, I do a lot through prayer. I call mine God. Everybody's got their own terminology, and whatever that is for you is fine, and that's what works for you. But I pray, and I pray often. And I always ask that, that God looks out for those less fortunate, and that an extra special blessing is sent to the archangels, the angels, my spirit guides, as well as all the others, and my loved ones that have graduated. And in doing that, I feel that it opens the door for them to step in when they're needed to do what they need to do.
Yeah. And it's quite, and I like prayer too. I use the word prayer. Some people use affirmations. You kind of opened up the door, because I'd like to share with you the prayer that we say, like in spiritualist churches, we actually have a prayer for spiritual healing. And it's said by very many organizations, and I'm sure some of you probably heard it before, but it says, I ask the great unseen healing force to remove all obstructions from my mind and body, and to restore me to perfect health. I ask this in all sincerity and honesty, and I will do my part. I ask this great unseen healing force to help both present and absent ones who are in need of help, and to restore them to perfect health. I put my trust in the love and the power of God.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
The doing my part is the hardest part. like sitting down and healing,
I tell you, when you told me you were in bed the other day, I almost about fell off my chair.
I did too. Oh, I almost fell out of the bed when I told you I was in bed.
I certainly did not expect you to stay in bed almost all day.
No, because the very next day I drove myself to the doctor for my own appointment.
Oh my goodness.
So for me, the part of doing my part, that's the hard part. The rest is easy.
Yeah. That's my favorite part of the prayer, because to me, that even ties into the whole spiritualist philosophy, right? That we have to do our part. We have to be this active participant with personal responsibility. Oh gosh, some days it's really great when everything's going good. You own that, right? Like, I feel good. I did this. I am good. It's the days when you don't feel good. You're like, what is this personal responsibility? Like, I didn't do this. I didn't create this.
I have to.
Yeah, I love it though.
But the hard part.
Well, it's true. It's interesting. I mean, again, all those things. If you're interested in reading, one of the greatest spiritual healers was Harry Edwards. And he was from England, and I want to say he passed to the spirit not that long ago, maybe in the, I don't know, Shouldn't probably quote me on that one. I don't have it, and I'm not going to Google it.
I will for you.
But he's considered, you know, kind of the most modern spiritual healer. And they actually have a healing sanctuary, which is on my bucket list to get to in England. But he wrote some fantastic books. One was Healing Intelligence, because, you know, if you know about natural and spiritual laws, like we were talking about that balance, right? Because it is true, acts of service make us, you know, more enlightened. It makes us help others because we're all connected. But then there's this part, if we don't do our part and heal ourselves, like Jack said, like, whoa, man, I got all this stuff I got to deal with too. But if we do, you know, we can do both at the same time, as long as we do it balanced, you know. But he talks about a lot of natural laws and healing that I think are really important. And I think one of those, and this one's the hardest one for sometimes my mind to grasp, is when we are the healer. So when we sit and we attune to spirit and we call in our healing guides and say we're going to be sending healing, or maybe Sandra, you know, I'm working on Sandra with healing. Now, Sandra says to me, oh, my shoulder, you know, my shoulder needs healing. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, send healing to Sandra's shoulder. And my spirit guide goes, no, Sandra needs to de-stress. Sandra needs to breathe. And I'm like, but wait a minute, her shoulder hurts, you know, fix her shoulder. This is why, like, I'm sure Randi probably teaches her mediumship students, everything that you give, because it could, even though it's so insignificant, it might be the one piece that puts it all together for the recipient. It's the same thing with healing. We have to just let it go and let it flow and not worry about the outcome or what to heal. Maybe Randi didn't need healing with her incisions at all. Maybe because her life is becoming, and I don't know, I'm saying this Randi as an example, okay? But because her life is becoming so balanced and she's on the track of living the life that she was intended to live, maybe it's because of all of the spiritual healing that she receives and gives and the work she does that everything's just healing quicker. You know, sometimes the law of sequence is probably one of the biggest laws, because as humans, we want to say, oh, look at this person needs to be healed, but maybe healing for them is, you know, different. I mean, not to touch on a sore subject, but sometimes, you know, sometimes healing could be like Randi said, which I'm going to steal that term, graduating. I was going to say transitioning to the spirit world. You know, maybe they need, you know, maybe that's a healing. You know, we can't get tied up in the, you know, actually deciding what gets healed. Our job as a healing medium is just to give the healing. Our spirit guides, our higher powers, you know, our angels, they know what needs to be done. And we just need to be the channel for that.
You know why I use the word graduated?
I don't know, but I love it.
Well, before I tell you, Mr. Harry Edwards was a Gemini. He was born, yeah, look at Jack sitting there going, yeah.
I did.
May 29th, 1893, and he passed December 7th, 1976.
Okay.
I use the word graduated because my theory, and this is just my working theory, so I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent, it's just my theory, is we don't get to transition, as people put it, until we've reached or attained a certain level or status. No matter what happens, you're not going to graduate until you've attained what you were sent here to do. So in my mind, it's like going to high school. You don't get to graduate until you get to a certain level. So yeah, I look at it as we're graduating.
I like that. I like that a lot. Thanks for sharing. I mean, like I said, I'll probably steal that one. That one's a good one. But that's true. But, you know, even in that sense of graduating, some people graduate younger because they just get it faster. And then some people graduate older because it takes them longer to get the credits. You know, it kind of falls into that law of sequence, doesn't it? Like, well, you know.
And if you spend too much time partying, it's going to take you longer.
Exactly. Too fun. Okay, so anyways, back to spiritual healing. So we heal ourselves. That's to me the most important. We really should be spending time healing ourselves. Then we move to healing others. You know, and absent or distance healing and absent healing is that kind of extension. You know, they say that the hands symbolize healing because most of the time, let's face it, our human self, for me anyways, I know some people don't like to be touched. I need to be touched. And especially when I am diseased or discomforted in some way, I want my mommy, I want her to kiss it, I want it to make me feel better. Like, you know, I get the fact, because, you know, even we talk about it and we know we don't have to touch to heal. Look at, nobody touched Randi. None of us touched Randi, but we sent her healing. Her people showed up to heal. And she's healing and nobody's laid a hand on her. Like, well, maybe the doctors did, of course, but, and, you know, but, you know, but spiritual.
Or at least a scalpel blade.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But, you know, so we know healing is absolutely possible without touch. But the reason we do laying on of hands healing is because, again, we're trying to balance out the fact that we know we're spirit first, having a human experience, but we also have to embrace the human experience. And for most people to feel the comfort of healing, they do need a touch. They need a touch. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, think about any type of spiritual healing, not just our spiritualist healing, but if you think about Reiki, access bar consciousness, I think besides sound healing, but sound healing, the vibration is touching you. You know, in color healing, you're wearing the color or the color is laid on you. So, I mean, think about all that. There's not really any healing that I know of that doesn't really have some aspect of touch in it, because the hands represent the transfer of healing energy from one spiritual being to another spiritual being. So, you know, and that's why a lot of times, like, even now, I can tell, I know this is funny, but when you start to call in your healers and the more you start to work with them, and especially if you're getting ready to like maybe send out healing, or you're getting ready to like maybe lay on hands healing, you feel your hands warm up or get ice cold. There's no right answer, because I do know some people whose hands get so hot, but to the touch, they don't feel hot, but their hands are like on fire. I also know people whose hands turn ice cold. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. I think there's your way. So however your hands, but you know, you start to feel that energy kind of like almost, you know, making a ball in your hand, you know, it starts to really kind of start to flow out of your fingers, you know. So the next time you're sitting with your spirit guides, you know, ask them like, hey, let's send healing. Let's send healing to our friends here. Let's send healing to our friends anywhere. And you'll start to feel those hands tingle, and you'll start to feel that energy, you know, kind of flow through you. I always talk about, in spiritualism, when it teaches the healing, you are a one-way funnel. So nothing can back up and come into you when you are doing spiritual healing. If you're doing magnetic healing, right, which is kind of more like me using my personal energy to heal Jack. So for example, I feel really good. I have full of energy. I go over to Jack's house. I'm like, come on, let's go. And it's like, I got a headache. And I'm like, okay, well, here, let me, you know, can I touch your head, or, you know, whatever. And what I do is I take my energy and I transfer it to Jack. And then what happens?
You get Jack's headache.
Exactly.
Because Jack will do that to you.
He do that to you without you even trying.
Well, and Jack just brought up a perfect point, because people who are in relationships, when you have close relationships, either, you know, a partner or a child, we automatically magnetic heal without even thinking about it, right? Because it's our loved one. We have love for them. We don't want them to suffer. So we, as these magnificent spiritual balls of energy cased in a suit, you know, we're like, hey, let me help you. And so we magnetically heal without even knowing it. And that's why people say, like, you know, certain empaths, they say they take on like physical ailments. It's because they're magnetically trying to heal the situation or the person that they're with and not realizing it.
Do I have to admit to having love for Jack?
A little bit.
I got a lot.
Yeah.
Jack is special.
You know, you call me a creeper.
Yeah, you're special.
I don't know how I don't know how to take that, Jack.
And I'm special, or that she called me a creeper?
No, that's you're special. Like, I don't know, like if she means like special of the heart or just
Special. I know. I accept that about myself.
I love it.
She's special in a lot of
love
ways.
it.
She's special.
One
But,
of my,
you know,
one of my endearing qualities.
You too, and I'm stuck in the middle of both of you on my screen. Like, I feel like I have to, like, I feel like I'm this net. I'm like, okay, now all balls stop. I'm going to continue on with spiritual healing.
Oh.
But seriously, on a serious note, if you get drained and you notice that you're getting drained because, like, you're taking Jack's headache, or, you know, call in your healers. Just say, wait a minute, I can't take this on. I mean, really, it's a thought. Say a prayer. Say, hey, help here. You heal it. You know, I don't want to take it on, because I think that's where the first step of control in healing, because you need control, in some form of control and order when you're doing any form of mediumship. It's reckless to just be this open ball of energy, you know, working with spirit. And, you know, you have to have some sort of boundaries. It's all about law of balance, right? So you have to have these boundaries. But if you're, you know, if you're healing, if you're healing, or you think you're healing, but you're taking on the person's symptoms, or you might not take on their symptoms, but you might be like exhausted, like all of your energy is depleted. Like you were just like, oh my gosh, I was ready to do all of this, and now I need a nap. You know, I always say, you know, and I kind of have an agreement with my healing guides. I'm like, listen, like if people need healing, just go ahead and step in and heal. You know, I don't need to tell them that, but at least don't use my energy, because I need my energy to do my day. You know, and I think that's the greatest thing, because most people, when you're allowing your guides to just kind of let that energy go through. One of my teachers, this is my favorite saying: from spirit, through spirit, to spirit. And so when you're doing that, there's no way, it's actually almost re-energizing the healer. You know, because you're just this, like, you get to be this channel, this like link between, you know, this great God power, God source, to the healer. So you're getting healed by giving healing too. Now that doesn't excuse you from doing self-healing. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, because you do need to take some time just to do that, you know, because we have a lot of layers we need to peel back throughout our life, don't we? And when there's little situations, I don't think we're ever 100% healed here, at least in the earth plane, but, you know, so, you know, work with that. And then it's interesting, like I said, I don't know when we're going to get to go back to laying on of hands healing. But, you know, that's the next step is that touch. Now, you can tell that I obviously, pastored a church in the past, because I don't know. Sometimes we can't touch in church. Like we only touch the shoulders because there's like, you know, certain legalities of, you know, watching, you know, touch manipulation, that kind of thing, you know. But, you know, we know that we don't have, that's what, you know, goes back to that conversation. We know we don't have to touch to receive the healing, but sometimes we just need it.
Yeah.
Jack, I feel like you're going to say something.
I am. There was a show. There was a show on TV, and I forget what channel it was on. But it was this guy, and he would lay hands on people and heal stuff. And at the time, like this was like maybe 2 years ago, I think. At the time, like I didn't know about all this stuff, so I just I had Reiki training, so I just assumed that's what he was doing. But now I'm wondering now, because he never said that's what he was doing. So I'm assuming maybe he was doing that instead.
He very well could have been. It depends, you know, there's a few, because we'll move into here in a little bit, we'll move into the whole, I hate the word psychic surgery. I just hate it. That's my disclaimer. I think it should be called spirit surgery, but we'll go, you know, we'll move into that next. But it very well he could have been. You know, there's some Brazilian spiritists, which is a little bit different from spiritualism, but pretty similar. They do laying on of hands. They do laying on of hands healing also, you know, and it's basically, to me, when you say spiritualist or spiritual healing, for me, I'm thinking more of our healers on the spirit side of life coming through and being the channel for that healing energy. And it very well could be. I mean, there's been numerous, like in Brazil, I'm trying to think who's the guy in Brazil that people went to and had what they call, and here's the thing too, you know, they say miraculous because, so for me, because I'm a spiritual and natural law kind of gal, there is instantaneous spiritual healing. It can be done. It has been done. It will be done. It will continue to be done forever and ever and ever. And so sometimes what might seem like a miracle is actually the perfect harmony of all natural laws working together. It's like the sweet spot that we all kind of want to get to. Do you know? It's like riding the perfect wave. And we're meant to do that once in a while, but we're not meant to ride the wave outright the entire experience, because we don't learn if we're in the wave the entire experience, right? We have to kind of have these little falls to, you know, kind of keep developing.
So then that leads to the next question, which would be, is there really that much of a difference between like Reiki and spiritual healing?
Yes and no. So interesting. I was just having a conversation with somebody, and again, this is, I'm gonna use the Randi disclaimer. This is my thought alone. So Reiki, I'm not too familiar. Some differences that I know in Reiki is that they are attuning you. So somebody has to give you the power. Like you have to go and you have to be given the power. Now in spiritualist healing, you already have the power. It's up to you to attune and connect to the power, if that makes sense. Now, I'm actually thinking about taking some Reiki classes with somebody, because Reiki's been around for, oh my gosh, forever. But we were just talking about this the other day, and I don't know, so if I offend anybody, I'm just going to apologize in advance. But, you know, when it comes to any form of mediumship development, if you just take a weekend class and then think you got it, no. I mean, this is a long process.
Even a few months.
Yeah, even a few months. Exactly. This is like a lifelong journey of mediumship development.
And what happens is people take classes even for a few months. They think they've got it, and you know they think they're off and running, and that's fine. You know, yeah. God bless them. Here's what I will tell you about Reiki, because I'm a Reiki master in multiple styles.
Okay.
And the belief is that somebody has to attune you. That is not my belief.
Yeah.
There is a book on Reiki before I was ever attuned at all. Somebody handed me and said, here, read this and see if, this is something you want to do. And it was a thin book. I've got it right here behind me somewhere. The instant I picked that book up, I had silver dollars in my palms that felt like energy rods were shooting out of them, to the point that my hands felt like they were going to break. And I remember telling the people, turn this off. And they're like, well, you can't really do that. So before I even had my first attunement, I mean, my hands, it was very painful. It was very painful. And I had to talk to my guides to learn how to control it, because I didn't want it.
Well, and just right there is another answer to Jack's question. So my understanding about Reiki is kind of, it connects, because again, I just said all healing comes from God or whatever source. And I know Reiki does attune you to the collective consciousness, the collective source, or God's energy. The thing is I think, why skip all these people that need help too? Do you know what I mean? Like, we're so quick to help others here. Well, why not allow spirit to help us too? Do you know? It's kind of like the theory I said, we're not going to put ourselves into the electrical box, right? We're just going to come here and we're going to turn on the light switch. And then maybe we'll learn to maybe host a little more current, and then a little more current. I think that, and again, I mean, I'm seriously, for the first time, I met somebody who I actually feel like I might take Reiki from, because, just like mediumship, just like any type of development, it has to take time, and it shouldn't cost you, like, quick, for $9.99 in 2 hours, you will have this certificate. Like, I just think no development comes that fast, except for a speeding ticket. Like, there's nothing that comes quick. Like, I think it all takes time to develop, because like Randi said too, I see a lot of people who want to start practicing healing, but they don't realize they're magnetic healing. So they're like, I get headaches, I get all this negative energy. Oh my gosh, I have these attachments. No, you don't. You just don't understand. You need to practice and understand that, control that. Like, don't use your healing, use their healing. So I think that's a little bit different too in the tech, obviously between, and again, I don't think any healing's bad. I think all spiritual healing's good healing. They all have their different, parts or origins. But what I find very interesting is they all go back to the one divine source. So, and you just have to do what you need to do to get yourself there to be that pure healer, and the more that, whatever modality you choose, and maybe you choose multiple modalities, I think color is extremely powerful, and I read auras. So I use color, in my healing. So for example, like I see, like if my guide shows me purple, that means that we're working on mental healing. If it's royal blue, it's physical healing. Again, I don't really care where it goes. I just let it flow, right? So, but at least then I'm aware, like I'm an active participant in the, I'm aware. And that's how people start to get into the medical intuitiveness and into what we call psychic surgery, which I'm calling spirit surgery, because that's actually physical healing, like, physical phenomena in mediumship, where it can be seen with, the 5 physical senses. That's the same type of healing that spirit surgery does, that instantaneous, like Jack, the show you were talking about, I'm not sure who the person was, but like if they were getting,
I forget what his name was.
Okay. But if they were getting, like, if they went, because you know how there's also those grottos where people go and pray and they leave their crutches and they walk away. That's like a vortex for spiritual healing. I think all these people, like all of us who say, we're not going to use our healers, they're like, well, then forget you. I'm going to this vortex and I'm going to show you how it's done. You know what I mean? That's what I think anyways. But, so that instantaneous healing is spirit manipulating the physical illness and dissolving it or repairing it or whatever it does. And I think, and I also think that has to be done through touch, because they need to get, the powerful energy, or what we might call ectoplasm, to kind of form so it can move into the body and repair the tendon or shrink the tumor. And it just dematerializes it, again. I'm such a sucker for natural and spiritual laws, but a law of science, a law of physics, energy can never change in size or mass. It always just can. So that means that it transforms, right? It goes from ice to water to vapor. So what's happening with these transformations is the energy is being reused and recycled somewhere else. So the diseased, maybe material is now being woven together to be the healthy material, or maybe the tumor is being dissolved and not given to the person in the middle, because if it is, then you're using your own, your own energy, which we don't want to use, but then maybe rematerialized in the physical or in the spiritual world for something else, so I mean, and I think, I personally believe that, my personal opinion is spirit surgery is probably being done more than we know in private homes, or, in, friends and healers, helping. Because think about all the people that have lived before us, medicine women and men and doctors and surgeons, if they're all over on the spirit side of life, they're all probably like, hey, I know how to do that, or I can fix that. And they're learning how to do it too. So I think I like to see more emphasis put on healing mediumship. Like I feel like healing is starting to kind of fall to the wayside in spiritualism. Everybody wants to give messages and prove the continuity of life, through, giving loved ones messages, which is also a form of healing, by the way, right? Because it is helping them heal through their grief process. But I think we also need to spend time healing everything too. I feel like that's an equal amount, and I think it's important that we start talking about, and I thought it was, thanks for Randi for inviting and being able to talk about spiritual healing and getting this word out there, because I feel like this has kind of taken a back burner on the stove of mediumship, when I think it should be on the front biggest burner, because we all need, I don't know. I mean, at least I think, I know I need healing. I don't know about any of you, but I could definitely keep using some healing too. Oh, go ahead.
And what I teach in my class is that you have to start with you. And one of the things that I had them do, and Jack did this exercise, Jack went through this, is I will have them write down a situation, all the people that were involved, and how it made them feel. Then I'll have them take a bunch of pieces of paper and write all the different ways they think they could possibly forgive that situation. And I'll have them set all those aside, and I'll have them take more paper and write all the different ways they think they can start to move past it. And then I'll have them put one of those stacks in front of them, spread it out, and pick the top 3 that resonate with them. Throw the rest of them away. Set that aside, go to the other stack and pick the top 3, throw all the rest away. Because now you've got a starting point. You've picked things that resonated with you, and they resonated with you for a reason. So you've got a starting point to start, forgiving and to start getting past it. And it's like I tell them, if a situation comes up or a person's name comes up and you feel some kind of way, you're not over it.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't healed.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times when there's something physically wrong with you, a lot of times if you just start healing what's within, you're going to find that that physical goes away. It's quite amazing.
It's Louise Hayes wrote a book on that, like Heal Your
did she?
Life. Yeah, it's fantastic because, you know, sometimes, like, and again, just talking exactly what you were saying, if you're having a shoulder problem, if you're having like upper back issues, it could literally just be that you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders and you need to distress yourself to fix this, to fix this the shoulder problem. Like once you fix that, that's where I say the law of sequence. It doesn't go in the order that I think we think it goes. It usually goes in an opposite or a long around order, and yeah, there's a few different people who wrote books on that, but I absolutely agree with you, Randy. And you have to start with you. Like you have to start with you. I'm going to tell a story about a physical healing that I thought was really awesome too. To learn how to heal others, to be the channel to help heal others, because you're not doing the healing, right? Spirit's doing the healing. You're the channel for it. But to help others heal through spiritual healing, one of the things that, is again, that work on self-healing. I had a girlfriend who went to the eye doctor and she had like all these cataracts. And she's like, they're like, you're going to need, this surgery or, and she's like, I don't have the money for this. I don't have insurance for this. It was just like, she's like, I just can't do this. And she has been, she had been working with her doctor on the spirit side of life. And she just said, like, I can't do this. I can't, have it. And so every night she put her hand on her eye and, she just visualized it was his hand. She would close her eyes. She would attune to him. She would see him. She would talk with him. She would feel him. And he would just, just do whatever he did while she was having this conversation with him. Honest to God, or hand to spirit, like I like to say, all of a sudden she goes back to the eye doctor. And do you know they had to take like 2 or 3 sets of x-rays because it was nothing was there, nothing. So her first x-ray, he was like, what? Like, I just looked at you 2 weeks ago. This is what you had. How is this even, like, he was checking his x-ray machine out. He's like asking her, what did you do? But she put her trust, like the prayer says, she put her trust and all of her power into God. And her doctor, her spirit doctor, was able to take it away. And I think that's awesome. I think that's, something that, I always say, try to do for yourself too. I mean, I also encourage the medical world, because I really do believe, I do believe certain diseases are not maybe just necessarily caused by some stuff we have to deal with. Some stuff is just, a reaction to maybe a lifestyle we lived, or a career. If you worked in asbestos, you didn't know it, you got cancer because of it. You know what I mean? I don't think you caused it, or there's, maybe marital problems are causing your discomfort.
Yeah. Environmental.
Yeah. Environmental issues, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I think the medical world is great too, but I like both. I mean, for me, my preference is I'm going to go to spirit first and then go to the dentist or the doctor second, and balance it out, but I think the possibilities when it comes to spiritual healing are just absolutely endless. I mean, because it comes from a source that is endless and perfect. And so I think we should be doing it more. Before I want to say one thing. When I said that healing prayer, I say it numerous times a day. That's my little thing too, that I also say out loud. But one of the things that I think is so cool is, and it comes from a place. Do you remember? Was it a couple weeks ago? Under all circumstances, keep an even mind. That philosophy of balance, right? The prayer starts with I ask. It doesn't say I beg or I demand. It says I ask, which is, I think, maybe that even mind, that neutral. Sometimes, when we're in despair, we beg. When we're angry, we demand. And I think the prayer helps kind of bring us that balance because it says, I ask.
Well, I think, and this is, again, my thought, my feelings, my theory. I think it's when we disassociate from ego and from fear. Because ego is what will make us demand. Fear is what will make us beg.
All right, goosebumps all over, totally stealing that one. I want to quote that. That needs to go right. Yes, absolutely.
Epiphany moment.
You know, when we give up our attachment to this, because you know what? There's nothing better than graduating. So why so many of us are so attached to this, I truly don't understand. Because isn't graduating the ultimate idea of us being here?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then if we're too full of ego, then what's going to happen? Because then we're some people say edging God out, but what I like to say is we're pushing spirit away. We're pushing them to the side and saying, hey, I got this right here. We don't have nothing. We don't have anything without spirit.
Yeah.
Because we just don't. We're not that capable. We're not as capable as we like to think we are. We're not as in control as we like to think we are. Hey, Stacy, what do you think we open up and see if these guys have questions?
Perfect. That's what I was just going to say. Like, anyone comment, questions?
Great minds think alike.
I'm a little scared.
Be a lot scared.
I'll be dreaming of dancing gummy bears in my head. I'll be like, Randy, get out, Randy.
No, Jack, get out.
There you go.
Creeper.
Does anybody have any questions? Oh, look at Barry.
If you come over, you can have some.
I got a whole box today, thank you, from a creeper.
Jack?
Yes, apparently. Apparently they creeped her out.
Because it didn't say where it came from. I'm like, this is too weird. So let's get back to the questions. Anybody have any questions or any comments just in general? I know somebody has to have something.
Well, I'm glad that this subject came up because I was unaware of the, I guess, spiritual healing part of mediumship. So that probably will be a new interest of mine anyways.
You know, it's great that we give messages from deceased loved ones because that's emotional healing.
Right.
In my mind. But there's a lot more to it than just that. So much more. And that's why, you know, like Stacy said, if you go to a weekend or even a few months or a year, you're still so in your infancy. Not that I'm this huge thing or Stacy's this huge thing because we've got all these years in, because you're always a student for life. But, you know, in the first couple years, you're still learning how to, like that little baby trying to learn how to take its steps, and it's getting its footing. It's getting confident, and sometimes it gets overconfident and it tries to take off running and it falls. You know, it's a long process. It's a very long process. And I know I still fall. Do you, Tracy?
Oh,
or
my
Stacy?
gosh. All the time. Absolutely. I'm always learning. And it's, you know, that's the thing too. Just start, you know, ask your healing guide to come in and feel feel the healing energy. I'm constantly still learning, you know, and what's interesting now with this whole pandemic and this whole lack of touch, my healers and I are having this whole conversation, because I say, well, now where do we go? I mean, because the sky's the limit. So is there any difference? How do we do it? What do we do? You know, so we're always learning and growing and developing and coming to understandings. But yeah, just start. That's the most important thing, you know. And it is similar, like Randi said too. Oh,
You're there.
oh, am I? Okay, because
Yeah, you're there.
all of a sudden you all looked frozen, and I'm like, oh, time warp. Are we rewinding? Did I say something wrong? Do I need to change the way I say it?
Bad girl. No.
My spirit's like frozen. No, but you know, just you're a healing medium. You know, think about it that way. Think it like if you're developing mediumship for messages, because that is healing, like Randi said, it's emotional healing. And it's comfort, and then, but we still continually, I just affirm to the fact that we're always going to need healing during this physical experience. So, you know, you're a healing medium, and tune into that spirit and be that channel, because I'm telling you, it's going to be so beneficial.
And you're always learning. And
Always.
And even when you feel like, you know, you've taken these classes with these mediums and you feel like, well, there may not be anybody out there that I'm interested in taking classes with right now. Talk to your fellow mediums, because I may say something to Stacy, or Stacy may say something to me, and it takes it to a whole new level.
Absolutely. I always say, like what Randi just said, take classes. You're always going to learn something. Even if you sit through a whole class and you're like, none of this makes sense, you just learned what didn't work for you. So you won't continue to keep trying it. Or that simple, like, metaphor. You know, I'll never forget a funny story, if I can just share for a minute. Clairaudience. I know this doesn't necessarily deal with healing, but maybe you might hear your spirit guide, right? You might hear your spirit guide talk to you. So I had a woman who, I said in class one day, I said, when you clairaudiently, you first hear with the inside of your ear. Sometimes you don't necessarily hear out here. Now, she was raised a spiritualist, and she said to me, so you mean when I hear the male voice in my head, that's clairaudience? Because I've been waiting to hear it with my physical ear. I'm like, how many classes? But you know, we're always learning, and somebody says it, maybe Randi and I can say, oh, we're saying it the same way, but different metaphor. But you know, Eve goes, oh my gosh, Randi's metaphor hit home. Like, the light bulb went off, you know? And that's where I say we're just constantly, listen, if spirit is endless and limitless, so are we. And so we can't limit our knowledge, and we can't think that we have an end to knowledge. Yeah.
Yep. And even when you've got years into it, like we have, you know, talk to each other, because we all have different experiences, and in sharing them, you know, you don't know what's going to click in place, where you could be working with something. I don't want to say struggling, because I don't feel we ever struggle, but you could be working through something, and I could talk to you or Joanne or, you know, whoever, and they're going to say something that is going to put the two gears in motion to where the wheel can turn, like remove that blockage that you've been dealing with. And we're never to the point that we stop learning. At least I don't want to be.
Me neither. Which I'm just going to say this too, which reminds me, if you're interested really in learning some spiritual healing, and that's like a form of mediumship that you might want to take on, I would suggest, like, if you can subscribe to like Harry Edwards' Healing Sanctuary newsletter, or the nsac.org has a newsletter, because in those newsletters are healing requests, where you can put the first name of somebody that you might want to send healing to. So maybe what you can do now, back in the olden days, it was always at 8:30 every evening. everywhere around the world at 8:30, you said the healing prayer and you sent healing. And the reason it was so concise is because, again, we need to form habits, and to form good habits, you make a schedule, right? You say at 5 o'clock every day, I'm going to do this, and it becomes a habit. But even if you can't do 8:30, even if you do 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but, you know, get yourself involved in a healing list. So you send healing to that list, you know, you send healing to the names on that list, you know, just feel your guides come in and projecting that energy to the names. And you could say just right now, without even joining a list, just say, I am sending healing to all the names on the healing list throughout the world, because there's many. There's prayer chains, there's prayer requests, there's healing requests, you know, and start there, you know, just start there. And then, like Randy says, you know, when you're ready to learn, your teacher will come, and find a teacher and work and learn and develop and grow. Absolutely.
And keep growing, because, you know, when we graduate, the more we've attained and the higher we've climbed, the higher we get when we go to the other side, you know. As a matter of fact, it's somewhere
I'm just
behind.
thinking, I hope I can get out of high school, and then when I get
Oh,
to the
here it
real
is.
world, I can go to college.
It
Probably
even
end up
talks.
the Blue Island.
It even talks about it in here. The more spiritual you are, the higher you enter, you know, on the other side. So
Absolutely.
that's, you know, another reason to keep on striving and keep trying to get better and better. And don't kick yourself for failures, you know, or shortcomings, because we're all going to have them.
Yeah. And they're not really failures, they're lessons, right?
That's why I say don't kick
Yeah.
yourself, because we're all going to have them. And without them, you can't grow.
Yeah.
You know, and be forgiving, because there's nothing worse that'll cause illness than holding on to anger and resentment.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse.
Disease and discomfort all live in the lower vibrational rate of energy.
I agree.
Absolutely.
So does anybody have anything they want to say? Because I think we've covered a lot.
Their minds are all like, I can't process all this.
What about mine?
Oh, honey, I don't know.
I know you never know about mine. Mine's like kind of.
Oh, fun.
Anybody? No?
Wow.
They're all going to go practice healing now. That's why they all want to call in their healing energy and their guides.
Listen, I'll tell you what, if you guys want to practice, you all can send me some.
Perfect. That's what we should
Because I'm still healing, and I'll gladly accept it. How about that?
Okay.
Give everybody a place to start. All right. Well, then I guess we'll close up for the night. So I would like to.
Let me just add one more thing. Can I? Because this is fun too. I
You
know.
can.
I'm
Yes, you can.
So some theory goes too, just some theories, but I kind of agree with it, is, you know, when our body sleeps, because we're all getting tired, I'm sure, yawning and getting ready to go to bed. When our body sleeps, our soul doesn't need sleep. So they actually say that we go and heal. So we astrally project and we go and heal in our sleep. So you're probably already a healer and you don't even know it.
And or we're being healed while we sleep.
Right, absolutely.
You know, and or we're being healed.
Absolutely.
Because I know I was the other night. Apparently I was talking in my sleep and doing all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that was right after surgery.
Oh no.
So, and I never do that. So yeah, they will come and visit you. And every night when you sleep, don't think, even if you don't realize you're a medium, don't think you're not getting downloads every night. That's how we learn and how we grow.
Absolutely.
And how we expand. We may not remember it, but you know, we're getting it every night.
Yep. Love it. Well, this was fun. Yay.
Well, we thank you again, because like I said, I didn't know, you know, how I was going to be after surgery. So I really, really do thank you. And to the point that, and see, I didn't even get myself ready tonight. Look at, I just threw my hat on. I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah.
So I have to figure out what we're going to do for next week. So if anybody has any ideas, please let me know, because I don't think that's the first Monday of the month, is it? No, that would be the 31st. So if anybody has any topics that they would like us to talk about, please, you guys, let me know. Okay, I'll be happy to get them into the schedule. And thank you all for joining us again. And for those of you that are on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you want to stay informed of new content that we come out with. And if there's anybody you feel can benefit, hey, hit the share button. We welcome you to do it. That's why we do this. All right. And everybody have a week as amazing as you.
Aw, yay.
Thanks, Stacy.
You're welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Fun sharing. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Jack, should I give you my address for gummy bears?
Yes, come over. Randy has it.